everybody. Welcome to our very special Fun Time episode today. Always happy to have you join us for these episodes because it's a great way to get to know each other. Today's episode is especially interesting and fun, along with lots of learning, I hope. But before that, we always start the show with a trivia question. So here's your question for today. Where in Canada was peanut butter invented? Let me repeat that. Where in Canada was peanut butter invented? Let me know the answer in the comments below, and you can also share this image and your answer on Instagram with the hashtag CELPIP, and we may feature it on our feed. I'll share the answer towards the end of our show. For now, let's begin. For those of you who are new here, CELPIP Live is an interactive YouTube series made to help CELPIP test takers like you understand more about the CELPIP test. If you're about to write the test, or if you know somebody who's about to write the test, please subscribe to our channel and click on the bell icon to be notified as soon as we go live. Today, we're talking about the differences in British, Irish, and Canadian English. This is a great episode to watch, especially if you're from a country where English is the primary language of instruction. Today, we have three guests, some of whom you may already know. Let's go say hello to them. Hello, thank you for joining us. Simon, you're the newest person here, so I'm going to let you get started. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me on the show today. So my name's Simon. As you can probably tell from my accent, I am English. I spent a long time teaching drama in England. And in 2007, I moved with my family to Vancouver in Canada. And I moved into teaching English, which I thought would be pretty easy as I speak the language already. But it turns out there's lots of language differences between British and Canadian English. So I've had a lot to learn as well. So I'm really looking forward to go over some of those today.
Great. And then we have Barry. Barry is our producer. He usually works behind the scenes, but today he's joined us on screen. Barry, welcome to the other side.
Thanks, Aswathi. Good to be on the other side. As she mentioned, I'm the video specialist with the company. So usually I'm doing most of the behind the scenes work that you see with CELPIP Live, but I'm absolutely delighted to be on the show today to talk through some vocabulary and idioms. I'm originally from Ireland, but I moved to Vancouver 3 years ago in 2019. And I've loved living in Canada, and I've loved learning more about the vocabulary and idioms which are on show in Canada.
Great. And then lastly, we have Nathan. Nathan actually joined us for the Halloween episode. For those of you who watched that episode, it was a lot of fun. Nathan, welcome again.
Hey, thanks. It's great to be here. I'm really excited to talk about more language today. Quick thing about me, I help design some of the study materials. So if you're preparing for CELPIP, you might have gone through some courses or practice tests that I've helped with. I was born in Canada and I've lived here for most of my life. So I do use Canadian English, but I watch a lot of British TV. So I'm really interested to talk about some of the differences and similarities today with vocabulary and idioms and stuff like that.
Great. I'm excited to get started. Why don't we just dive right into it? So we'll be doing vocabulary first, and if you haven't already figured, we're going to be going through words that should be the same in all three English languages, but they're not. So let's start with the first image. Okay, so this is, I'm going to say that what we call, so I'm from, I was talking about this earlier. I was born in India, I grew up in the Middle East, so I'm going to talk about what we used to call this. We used to call it the theater. But feel free to jump in whenever you want to talk about it. Simon, what is this usually referred to in
the?
Okay.
This is a point of contention with my friends as well, because we call it the cinema, or sometimes we might say we're going to the movies, but this location is the cinema. It is absolutely not the theater. And as I mentioned, I'm a drama teacher, so I've spent a lot of time in the theatre, so I get very pedantic about that. But all my Canadian friends call it the theatre, and I still can't bring myself to say anything but cinema.
Yeah, for me too. This is always the cinema to me. The movies is not something which I really refer to until I moved to Canada. It's definitely something which has become more part of my vocabulary since I've been here. I've also heard it referred to as the pictures, which from us people of an older generation sometimes call it the pictures in Ireland. Nathan, what would you call that here?
Yeah, I'm kind of the opposite side of the board here. So like I'm familiar with the word cinema, but I wouldn't use it in this context. I would say either the movies, or more commonly, I would probably say I'm going to a movie theater. And I don't think I've ever said the pictures in this context, like in my life. So it's, yeah, definitely some differences there, but I'm familiar with the terms. I think cinema I might only use if I'm talking about like the industry in general, like, oh, this is a good piece of cinema, but I'm not going to go to the cinema.
Yeah, that's how my friend uses it. He's a writer about film, and when he talks about cinema, he talks about the industry and the art form, but never the location.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The cinema and the movies. So if for those of you who are watching, if you call it something else, please let us know in the comments. We're very curious to know how it's pronounced. We're already pretty confused about different words, so do let us know in the comments. Okay, next one. I would say, you know what, I'm not going to start this time. Simon, why don't you start?
Okay, but this is a problem for me because these are jeans, and these specifically are jeans because of the jean material. But if they were not made out of denim, they would be trousers. They would absolutely not be the thing that Nathan's about to say, because that's very confusing for me, because that's a whole different article of clothing that you wear on your lower half. Go ahead.
Nathan.
So I guess you're saying that you would not call these pants, like I would say. Yeah, like I think like Simon, like specifically those are jeans, but in general, that kind of clothing, I would just say, oh, those are pants.
And Simon, why wouldn't you call them pants?
Because I spent many years of my life talking about pants as underwear. Like pants are like boxer shorts or whatever your version of that might be. And so when I hear like my children telling me that they can't find their pants, I've just got vision of them running around like completely naked. But the like when I go shopping, and I try and find like the sections in a superstore, and I still, if I see the pants, my brain doesn't equate that with this article of clothing. It's underwear, which can cause lots of confusion.
I can imagine.
And just to add to the confusion, these will always be a pair of trousers to me. Although I can probably get behind the term jeans, pants is not something that I'm sure I'll ever get on board with. But trousers will always, usually anything which is slightly formal, I'd go with that, call that by the name trousers. Although jeans, sometimes I think I do call that there too.
Interesting. This explains, so I had a roommate in the US who was British, and as roommates and girlfriends are, we always discuss what we're wearing. So in a conversation, I mentioned to her that I'm not planning on wearing pants, I'm going to wear a skirt. And she was really worried for me for a full 15 minutes. She didn't understand what I was saying. And I was like, why are you so worried? And then she's like, well, you can't just roam around with just a skirt. And so we had to go through the conversation to understand that I was talking about bottom pants, like trousers, and she was talking about underwear, like you said, Simon. Very interesting. Okay, next one. Nathan, do you want to start this?
Yeah, I would definitely call that a trunk. I know that Barry and Simon might have a different word, but I can't wrap my mind around what you're going to say, I'm pretty sure. So that's definitely the trunk of a car or the trunk of a vehicle for me.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, this is a boot. Always will be a boot. Trunk is something which I had heard from watching American TV shows and movies, but it's definitely not something part of my vocabulary. I understand that boot may be a little bit confusing as it's a bit of a double meaning there. It's got more than one meaning on show. Simon, how would you call that in the UK?
Yeah, this is definitely a boot. Like trunks are for elephants and very old-timely, like Harry Potter packing cases. That's it, which are very important in British culture. But it's interesting that the front and the back of the car in British English are both objects of clothing, and I don't know why we do that. Like maybe the car is wearing clothes, but no, this is a boot. It's not a trunk.
What's the front called?
So we call it a bonnet, like an Easter bonnet. Like a bonnet is a really fancy hat that you wear like one time a year and decorate with eggs on it. So of course, that's what we also call the front of a car. I mean, it makes total sense, right?
I mean, in English, though, the front of a car is the hood, typically. So that can be like a piece of clothing, too.
Oh, I suppose so.
But it's a different piece of clothing.
I guess the idea of clothing transferred over the ocean is just you modernized it a little bit from an ancient, like Jane Austen hat to something more modern.
So if you're putting footwear in the trunk of your car in England, it might be you're putting boots in the boot.
Yes, but you never put your bonnet in the bonnet.
Okay.
That's where the engine lives.
Love it. If anybody from India is watching, let us know what you call it. It's a very interesting word. Okay, let's go to the next one. This is my favorite item because I've witnessed the confusion around it. So I love it. But so the usual term for this, I'm assuming everybody knows, most people know it as fries. But what else could it be called?
Well, these are chips. Like you don't go to England and have a nice basket of fish and fries. It just doesn't happen. But the British chips are a bit thicker. They're like bigger than these. Like these are more like the Belgian fries style where they're much thinner. But even this style, when you buy them in England, they're chips. Which my brain is confused then because then chips are something completely different here to England where we call them crisps. But these are chips, definitely.
Nathan?
I don't think Canadians don't say chips at all.
So 99% of the time I say, yeah, these are fries. I don't ask for a burger and chips. I ask for a burger and fries. But I only ever say chips when I'm getting fish. So I always ask for fish and chips. Even in Canada, that's just the most common. That's just what you say. So it's like that weird exception. But other than that, it's always fries.
Yeah, to me too, these will always be chips. Although I think since moving here, I've probably adopted the term fries, especially in certain occasions, like if I'm going to a fast food chain or something like that, I'll more than likely call that a large fries or a medium fries. But in any other occasion, they'll always be chips to me, I think.
It's interesting you mentioned fast food, actually, because I am so... I really hate repeating myself. So when I order something like this, I'll order fries because whenever I say chips, the poor people that work here have no idea what I'm talking about. And it's even bad when I ask for water as well. A bottle of water never, ever happens. So I say it the Canadian way. I say water.
Water. Tanya, in the private chat, I think, Simon, this is to your comment that you mentioned that the chips in UK are bigger. So she asked if you mean wedges.
So I can see why you might think that, but no, wedges are completely different. So wedges are like, we're very specific about our chips. So chips are flat, like a plank of wood made out of potato, and then deep fried. But wedges are like a triangular kind of a quarter of a potato, heavily seasoned and then fried. So much fluffier inside. Really, really nice. But
I love them. I prefer them to fries. They're my favorite.
They are good. They are
I
very
mean,
nice.
at the end of the day, for me, they all taste great, and I don't care how I'm going to call them as long as I get my ketchup. And
Okay, let's get to the next one before we're all hungry. Okay. Oh my God, I've had so much trouble with this. I'm gonna start. I call this a lift.
Yeah.
I've always called it a lift. Um, but I'm gonna Nathan, what do you call this?
elevator. It's an elevator.
What's a lift for like Nathan?
So
What do you think?
I was thinking about that. I can't really think of many contexts in Canadian English where you use lift as a noun. Like I was really struggling to come up with that.
Okay.
Elevator, very much the term that we use for this machine here.
Simon?
Yeah, I just see what Tanya said about when someone gives you a lift, but I think in Canada they would say they give you a ride, right? Is that
Yeah, like lift. I've heard lift, but I would probably say a ride. Yeah.
right? Okay, but I would call this a lift, definitely. And because here it's an elevator, right? But the moving stair thing is an escalator, and I still get those two mixed up when I'm trying to describe one over the other.
Oh.
But we always say lift for this. We don't say elevator because it lifts you. It also elevates you as well. 50% of the time, we're both right. Like we don't have a word for when it goes down, but we've got it covered for going up.
Very.
It's true.
Yeah, for me too, for sure. This is always going to be a lift. Elevator, I don't know. It's not something that's part of my vocabulary. And also, yeah, definitely if I'm going to pick someone up in my car, I'm always going to give them a lift. Giving them a ride is not something which I've totally adopted in my vocab just yet.
Same.
Hey, we've got the idiom, a British idiom, to take someone for a ride, which is to fool them, to trick them into thinking something for your own benefit. Do you say that in Canadian English as well?
I've heard the expression, but I don't think I've personally used it. Like it doesn't come up very often.
So that's maybe why we would never say to take someone for a ride, because we use it as an idiom in British English.
Yeah, we use it to like cheat someone or to things like that. Interesting. I've had actual arguments with plumbers and people who've come to fix my house about lift versus elevator because they don't understand what I'm saying. And I'm like, I understand that you say elevator, but how hard can it be to make sense that it's a lift? A lift is an elevator. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I've had a tough time with this. Okay, let's go to the next one. This is garbage, right?
This will always be rubbish to
This
me.
is rubbish, absolutely.
This is
And
always
I never feel so posh in this country as when I describe garbage as rubbish. I'm just going to take the rubbish out. It just sounds like a different level of old-fashioned.
I feel I'm the odd one out here because I know in general in Canadian English is garbage, but I watch a lot of British sitcoms where they would say rubbish. So honestly, half the time I say rubbish, half the time I say garbage.
I've never used rubbish in the context of garbage. I've used it in the context of performance or work. This is rubbish, like when I'm like trying to draw something or something like that. But I know that they also use trash for this, so there's that.
Also trash, yeah.
Is
Yeah,
there
all three of those I think I use pretty often.
Is there a difference between trash and garbage in Canadian English?
Not to my knowledge.
Oh, okay.
They're just synonyms, yeah.
Everybody in the comments are also saying that they use the word garbage, so I think rubbish is a uniquely.
You should change. Everyone in the comments, you should change today. Call it rubbish. You'll feel more posh.
Or I mean, if you want to be more efficient, trash is only one syllable, so and a few letters. So
I think Dia in the comments is asking, can you please discuss what you call a garbage bin in our different types of English? So I can't. I'm trying to think of mine, but why don't you start? Barry, you can start this time.
Yeah, it's always going to be the rubbish bin. That's where we put all the rubbish. So yeah, I think rubbish is the term that I would always use. For me, it's funny. I always think garbage sounds a little bit more posh than rubbish. I don't know why. When I say it, I always feel like I'm going up in the world. So yeah, for me, it's always a rubbish bin.
Maybe it's just because where I grew up, but it's the big silver ones are dustbins, like classic dustbin. But the bins on wheels, we very cleverly call them wheelie bins because they wheel. I don't know. They are bins with wheels on them, so we call them wheelie bins. Which is
I just remembered we call them dustbins too. That's the word that I was looking for.
okay.
Yeah, I always said dustbin.
I would say like if it's the classic metal can, like the circular container, I would say that's a can, like a garbage can. But the blue ones for recycling and things like that, I always say bin. So that's the paper bin, that's the bin for containers or glass and things like that. But I don't know, maybe that's just me living in a big city where there are lots of different divisions for recycling and stuff like that.
Interesting. Yeah, always gonna be dustbin for me. Not even just bin. It has to be dustbin. Because a bin could be anything else. Anyway, let's go to the next one. Oh my God, this picture is so great. I love this. This is my favorite kind of crisps chips, but so this picture is just great for me. Anyway, I call this chips. Nathan?
Definitely chips. I'm very hungry right now. Those are chips, potato chips, all the way.
Simon, I know you spoke about this earlier.
Yeah, those are crisps. Like, I actually ordered fish and chips once, and they brought me in Canada fish with crisps.
Oh no!
And I think if my wife remembers, I was so angry, Like, who eats fish and crisps? Like, who would do that? So I was very, very angry about that. But the more important question is, what's the best flavor of crisps? And the answer is salt and vinegar, of course. But
that is wrong. That's the wrong answer.
That's wrong. No.
I mean, we can all.
Sour cream and onion is the best.
Oh gosh, no. I guess I'm the odd one out here, but I like the plain ones. I like these ones without. Well, I like if they're gonna be spicy, I'm all for it. But I like the rich, which I don't know what do you call them, but the ones that have the lines on them.
Yeah, ripple or ridge.
Ripple, yeah. Those have different words too. I did have a question, Nathan, when you said potato chips, somebody else in the comments have also said potato chips. Do you specify it as potato chips? When you say, like when you talk about chips, do you specify potato chips or do you just say chips?
I guess like half the time I'll say chips, half the time I'll say potato chips, but often like if I go to a store and it's big enough, there aren't just potato chips. There are like maybe rice chips or quinoa chips or veggie chips. So it's almost like you almost need to clarify sometimes because there are a lot of different varieties out there.
What about you, Barry? Is it just crisps or do you have specifications?
Yeah, it's always crisps to me. And if I could make a request to my Canadian friends is that they add the potato before chips. So that there's no confusion for me in future, because it's something that does always catch me out as well. Sometimes people say chips and I'm fully expecting French fries or actual chips. And always, to my surprise, it's just a bag of crisps usually.
But fries are potato too. Like, you're just opening up a huge can of worms. Like, Nathan, we shop in different stores. If you go into a store with quinoa chips in them, like I've never seen that. So they're always crisps for me.
Just it's if the store's big enough, there's like half an aisle of random types of vegetables in chip form.
Wow. Great. Let's move on from this picture. Oh my God, I actually have the exact clock. Hang on.
Oh,
look at that.
Perfect prop.
Anyway, I just said the word. I call it a clock. What do you guys call it, Simon?
Well, this specific clock is an alarm clock.
Oh.
So this is a very specific kind of clock, just to confuse things more. So this isn't just a clock, it's an alarm clock.
What do you call it, Nathan?
I'd call it a clock and an alarm clock. Like I know in the image that's an alarm clock. I don't think I've seen one like that in real life in years because I just have an alarm on my phone or whatever. And if we're like talking about the specific time there, if we want to get into that, I would probably say it's 12:30. I know there are different ways to say the time for sure.
Yeah, this is something which really caught me out when I first moved to Canada. For me, this is 12:30. So anytime I see 12:30, 1:30, it'll always be 12:30, 1:30. But it has caused confusion. And even just a couple of weeks ago, I told one of my friends, oh, let's go snowboarding at 4:30. And at 3:30, my friend was waiting for me to finish work. And he was waiting, and eventually he called me at like 15 minutes later, said, oh, where are you? I was like, oh, well, I said 4:30. But I know to a lot of people that actually means an hour earlier. So it's something which I've had to be more conscious of since moving to Canada.
I have a question. When you say 4:30, is that like a shortened version of 4:30? Maybe like I'm just wondering. Maybe that's why it's confusing. But
Yes.
not that there isn't a word for before, half an hour before. I don't know if that there's a word for that, but I definitely thought it was 1/2 or 1/4.
Yeah, I think it comes from 4:30. It's just like a shortened version of it. But I think without that critical past, some people think it means the moment between 3 and 4. So if it's 4:30, they think that means 3:30. And I think that might be where the confusion lies. So it's something which I've had to be more conscious of since coming here for sure.
Yep. Simon?
Yeah, I was just thinking, you're lucky they didn't turn up at 2:00 if you're saying 4:30. Like that's the kind of crazy thing we would do in England. But yeah, this is 12:30 or 12:30 for me. But the thing that I find confuses the most people here is that if the big hand gets to the 7, it becomes 25-1. Like you do the countdown time to the next hour, and a guy asked me the time here, and I told him it's 25-1, and he just like completely just froze in confusion as he's trying to work out what the hell I was saying.
No, I think it's a great way to. I know 12:30 and 12:45 is easier, but I really like that the way you guys pronounce it. Like I mean the way you guys talk about it, like 4:30 and 1:45, and I would love to know it and I would love to get used to it, but it's just really complicated in my head.
Yeah, like half 12 or 1:30. Like those, they make sense to me, but I have to do like a double take and do like an internal calculation. Like, okay, so that's what you mean, because it's just not in my regular vocabulary.
Yeah, like I'll take that information and process it and then let you know in 10 minutes if I've understood you correctly.
I think this is probably the hardest thing for our learners as well. It's the hardest thing that I find is when you've got something so deep rooted, like Barry, to say 12:30 or 25-1, and telling the time is something you learn when you're a child. It's one of the first language expressions that you learn. And to the idea that somebody else can't know something that in your mind is the most straightforward, easiest thing in the world, that can be really, really confusing. And it's a good reminder about language differences.
Yeah, for sure.
What would you say, Barry or Simon, if it was 12:05?
5:00.
12:05. Yeah, for sure.
I would say maybe 5:12 or 12:05.
Yeah, at the 12:05 or 12. That's what I would assume everybody would say as well. 5:00. Okay, next word. Is it the activity?
I think it's the place potentially.
Oh, okay.
So where these people are enjoying a drink, I would always refer to that as the pub, the sacred pub, which is so ingrained, I believe, in Irish and UK culture. Yes. It's one of our favorite hobbies back at home. And yeah, it's not something, again, since moving here, a lot of people give it a different name. And it's something which I've definitely adopted more in especially the last year or so. I've noticed I've caught myself calling it probably, what would you call it, Nathan?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this, and I would sometimes call this a bar, But at least for me, like pub is still a common word. I would almost like differentiate pub and bar depending on the type of location. So like for me, a pub, there are definitely pubs in Canada, but they're maybe a little quieter, a little more cozy, whereas a bar is maybe a little bigger and maybe there's typically some sports playing on the TV and maybe a little bit louder. At least for me, that's how I kind of differentiate the two. But I would say in general in Canada, if you're like going to an establishment like this, it's probably a bar.
That's interesting. I actually thought it was the other way around. In my head, a pub is the more like casual, noisy, friendly place, and then the bar is the more posh, kind of at your table service kind of situation.
Yeah, like, I think they're very, very interchangeable here.
What I find interesting is that I've started differentiating between pubs and bars, because I would say pub for this, but the pubs in Vancouver aren't real pubs. Like a real pub to me is you can walk up to the bar and order a pint and drink it as quickly or as slowly as you want. And every pub here feels more like a bar because you have to sit at a table and wait for like table service, and you can't just go in and order your own drink. And so there's no such thing as a sneaky pint before like shopping, or because in England we're if we're out doing something and we've got 10 minutes and we're with our friends, we'll have a sneaky pint. Sorry, in the UK, I'm sure this is an Irish thing too. We'll have a sneaky pint, or we'll go and have 15 minutes in a bar, and you just can't do that here. It doesn't exist. You spend those 15 minutes waiting for table service and then paying extra for it, because we're not a tipping culture either. So everything is much, much more expensive.
No, I didn't think of that. I can't imagine in India. I think we just say bar, but let me know in the comments. I also can't remember if you just can go up to like the person and just ask for a drink. So interesting. Barry?
Yeah, one thing Simon you picked up on too is I would always refer to when you order a glass of beer as a pint, but I know that a lot of people here just call it a beer straight up. Always just ask for a lager beer or whatever. But to me, it will always be a pint, the sacred pint, ordering that in a pub or bar, wherever you may be. It's something which I think will always be part of my vocabulary as well.
Absolutely. And a pint is a very, very specific glass and shape of glass. And what I've been to many bars here where I've ordered a pint. They've asked me if I want a pint, and they've given me a glass of beer that's like smaller than a pint. And it seems to me like pint is like a synonym for like a glass of beer here. But
yeah, I've definitely come across that. Like I usually specify a pint if I go to a bar or a pub, because there are different options like sleeve and glass and things like that. But depending on the place I go, the volume of a pint can really, really differ. I don't know if it's like that, like in England or Ireland.
So a pint isn't actually a defined amount of liquid. It's more like the shape of the glass and the general size of the glass. But I've had all kinds of glasses here. and pouring techniques. Barry, on another podcast, maybe you can talk about the Guinness pouring technique in Canada, because I'm sure you've got lots to say about that. But there should be a proportion of the pint glass that is foam, and that's not done here. But the seems to be like a pint is just a large glass here of all different sizes.
Yeah, I think Barry, the only time we've met once, I think we were talking about this Irish. We were talking about the Guinness and how you were saying that even the taste is different in Canada versus Ireland or anywhere else.
Yeah, for sure. It's something that Irish people talk about a lot. And if you're part of any Irish groups in Canada, you'll often see people asking those groups where they can get the best pint of Guinness, wherever you may be. If you're in Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, we're always on a quest to try and find the best pint of Guinness wherever we might be in Canada. I'm not sure exactly why. Maybe as it travels over the ocean, it loses some of its magic. But yeah, the taste of Guinness is definitely just a little bit different here. And I definitely recommend, if anyone wants a good pint, always go to an Irish bar. There's usually a couple around any major cities in Canada. And those are usually your best bet if you want to get a decent pint of Guinness here.
Interestingly, they also have a lot of Indian food in the Irish. I love it. I mean, I'm happy about it. But I thought it was a Canadian thing because because of how much we all like Indian food here. But apparently, it's a thing like in the UK as well that you go to an Irish pub, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Simon and Barry, but you do get like
Indian
based.
Indian food in the UK is our national dish now. Like all like Indian inspired food. It's maybe not as authentic as it should be, but the Indian food in all kinds of places is a really normal thing to serve in the UK.
Good to know.
Yeah, same in Ireland, I think. We don't have a strong food culture, I think, as much as other places. So usually we just take from other places and try to use their inspired dishes to improve our own taste buds.
Interesting. So if any of you from India in the UK, I think you can go try out this Indian food or Indian inspired food that we'll be talking about. I just want to say to you, Simon, Barry, and Nathan, that a lot of our commentators are enjoying this episode. So thank you for joining us.
Excellent.
Okay, next image. Is this a highway?
It's a highway.
It's not. It's a motorway
It's a motorway.
because it has motors on it.
Well, they're high. They're higher than the usual roads.
They're going at high
Ground
speed.
level, like if it's ground level, do you still call it a highway, or does it have to be raised?
No, it's still a highway. Yeah, I always call it a highway, and I know that they call it something else in the US, and I can't remember it. But I'm glad to know that it's called a highway here as well in Canada.
Yeah, it's always a motorway. And on the subject of the US, I think they call it a freeway there.
Yeah,
I think that's what they also call it there.
freeway.
So everything seems to end in way, but we just changed the word in front of that.
But tell me one thing though, a motorway, if you're calling this a motorway, then any road should be a motorway. Because
No,
motorway.
no, of course. Don't use logic when it comes to English. Come on. Motorway is for fast cars, and then you have to move down the hierarchy of A roads and B roads. They're kind of graded on how much traffic they get. So the motorways are usually the multi-lane roads, and then when you go down to an A road, Barry, you can correct me if I'm not getting this right, but an A road is like maybe 2 lanes, and then a B road is 1 lane. So there's a thing.
Yeah, for me, if it has 2 roads on it, that's a dual carriageway as well. I think that's a term we use in
I
Ireland
don't know if I've heard that one before.
Yeah.
That's a pretty common one. But yeah, usually if it's not a motorway, I'm usually just going to call it a road. I'm just it's a universal term for me.
Nathan, what do you call a dual carriageway?
I'm pretty basic in my street terminology. Either it's a highway where you're driving really quickly, or you have like your road, your street, your avenue, the smaller ones.
No.
I don't know if I can think of like anything kind of in the middle there.
While I have you all here, I have a question that I've wanted to know for a long time. What's the difference between a boulevard and a street and an avenue?
Oh my gosh, I have no idea.
Okay, so I know my wife's watching upstairs, and I know she would know the difference. But an avenue, I believe, is a tree-lined street.
Okay.
A boulevard, I have no idea. I'm sure you might know. That's more clever than I am. Barry? Oh.
Yeah, no, it's
Wait.
absolutely no idea.
Trees in the middle. A boulevard, I'm informed by someone far more intelligent than I am, has trees down the middle. So the two road directions are separated by trees down the middle.
Oh, I love that. Oh, okay, good to know. Because I live at Boulevard, and I've never understood what that meant. So good to know.
Do you have trees down the middle of your street?
I don't think so. I do have it on the side. Like, let me check. I haven't checked. I will. That's interesting. Great to know. Thank you to your wife.
Well, she sounds like she's wrong, so let's not thank her just yet. Okay, I'm not going to get in any more trouble.
Next one. Oh, so we've come to the this is like the second part of our episode and also the last part of our episode. I didn't even know that time was passing, so I had a lot of fun. Let's start with our first one. This is the fish out of water.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, for sure.
This one's close to my heart. So this is when you feel you're in a group or an environment that you don't feel suited to. So it could be something that you haven't trained in. If you're trying something new that you've never done before and everyone else has done it, then you could feel like a fish out of water. But you could also be, I felt it a lot when I'm at like a party or something and everyone knows each other, but I don't know anyone. I feel like a fish out of water.
Mm-hmm. Nathan, oh wait, but is this commonly used, Simon and Barry?
Yeah. This is common. Yeah. In
Nathan?
Yeah, this is pretty commonly used here as well. Just like Simon was saying, I mean, you're feeling, a little bit unhappy or not quite comfortable because of the activity or the situation you're in. Like you're going to a party and you don't know everyone, or like if your friend invites you to do a marathon and you haven't run a single kilometer in your life, you're very much going to be a fish out of water if you actually do the marathon. So yeah, you can use it for a lot of different situations. It's a fairly common idiom in Canada.
Yeah,
let me know for those of you who are watching if you used it. I myself have not. I know it as I know idioms, but I don't think I've used it actually in conversation. Sorry, Barry, did I interrupt you?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say the most fish out of water moment I think I've had since I've come to Canada is when I was trying to learn to snowboard with one of my Irish and English friends. It's not something any of us had ever done before. And while people were zooming past us on the slope, we were very much sitting on the ground trying to get our bearings. And it's something that it was definitely the most fish out of water, I think, moment I've had since coming here.
Are you better at it now?
Yeah, I'm no longer. I think the fish is firmly under the water now, and yeah, it's something I think I've started to get the hang of finally.
Love that. I myself have never tried to snowboard. I don't know what it's called, but there is a version of snowboarding that you can do on sand, and I did that in Dubai. It's the same thing, like the same instrument or the what do you call it? The board. It's the same board, but it's on sand, and because they have peaks there, right, of sand. So you can do sandboarding, which didn't go great for me. Anyway, let's go to the next one. Oh, I actually don't know what this is.
Well, if I told you, you see where I'm going with this? If I told you what this was, I might let the cat out of the bag.
Oh,
I'm not going to tell you.
Yes, that's okay. Letting the cat out of the bag. I know what it means, but Nathan, do you want to tell our viewers what it means?
Yeah. So it's when you have like some news or information that has been kept hidden or secret, and then you suddenly reveal it. I don't personally use this very much. Like I am familiar with the idiom for sure. Like an example might be if like your partner and their spouse are having a baby and it's kind of a secret for a while, and suddenly they let all of their friends and relatives know, they would be letting the cat out of the bag. But I don't know if I've ever actually used this idiom out loud. I've just kind of like heard it used before.
So letting the cat out of the bag is when so it's not just letting out a secret, but letting out a secret before it's intended to be let out.
So I don't think it's just that, but that's how I mostly use it. I think you can, if you're revealing something, you can say, well, it's time to let the cat out of the bag. But I generally, in my head, it's more like you've said something wrong. Like you've told someone about their party, but it was a surprise party and you've let the cat out of the bag. There's
Oh,
like a feeling of regret or that you've messed up. Maybe that's just because how I've used it all my life, but
It's a really weird mental image. Like, I don't know where this idiom came from. Like, why is the cat in the bag in the first place? Like, what's going on with that situation?
I was just thinking about this. The only thing that I can think of is that somebody bought a cat as a surprise for someone and they let it out before the surprise was done.
so there's one theory that it relates to a whip called the cat o' nine tails, which in the Royal British Navy was used for punishment for sailors that did things they should not have done.
Oh my God.
So if revealed their transgressions, if a sailor told one of the superiors about another sailor, they would let the cat out of the bag because the other sailor would be punished.
With the whip.
With the whip, which is a cat o' nine tails, is a very short whip with 9 like bits of leather on it. So punishment. Just a British idiom about punishment.
I'll stick with my image of a kitten in a paper bag instead.
Have you ever tried to keep a kitten in a paper bag? I don't think it would be in that bag for very long.
Probably not.
I don't have a cat, but I don't imagine so, no. Okay, good to know. Next one.
Oh.
Barry, do you want to tell us what this is?
Yeah, I think this might refer to a taste of your own medicine.
Oh.
Which is a pretty common one in Ireland anyway. It's something that people say an awful lot. It usually kind of refers to somebody who has done something wrong and that same bad thing has then inadvertently happened to them. So, for example, if I was to tell someone that if I was to make an example of someone in a bad way at a party, for example, to tell an embarrassing story about someone at a party, a taste of my own medicine might be someone else then telling an embarrassing story about me. So that's something that's pretty common in Ireland. I don't know, Nathan, do you use that commonly in Canada?
Yeah, I've definitely used it once in a while. Yeah, exact same meaning. You do something kind of negative to someone else, and then it kind of comes back in your direction. I was wondering about the origin of this because, like, medicine is good. If you're tasting your own medicine, why would that be a bad thing? So I looked it up, and one potential origin is that there's a very old story about a man who was selling fake medicine to other people. And then one day he got sick, and those people tried to help him by giving him the medicine that he sold to them. But he knew, this is fake. It's not going to work. So he got a taste of his own medicine in a bad way.
Before we guessed what this was, Tanya mentioned it, but I also thought of the same thing. I thought it was a hard pill to swallow, which is also, I think, an idiom or a metaphor.
Yeah.
I was going to talk about something. Oh, in terms of origins, what is the meaning? So I know what it means to have your cake and eat it too. But in terms of like origins, why would you have a cake if you didn't want to eat it?
That's a great point.
But to have your cake and eat it is like you want everything. You're being greedy. It's like, of course, in a real life situation, you would want to eat your own cake. That's true. But it's like you're not being reasonable. You want everything without any concession to anybody else. You want your cake and eat it.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I remember the meeting. I just realized, like, was there some point in life where you were only in charge of making cakes and not eating them, or having cakes?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I love that idiom, though. I use that one a lot. Okay, next one. I have no idea what this means.
Oh, I think this might be that where every cloud has a silver lining.
Mm.
Oh.
Every bad thing has an aspect of it that you could change into a positive. So it's kind of this philosophical approach that look for the good, even when bad things happen. Think about what positives you could take from it.
Nice.
Or if you're a pessimist, you can reverse it and say every silver lining has a cloud, where all good things have bad aspects too. But this is the common one.
Mm-hmm.
I actually use this. I've used this quite a bit. Nathan, is that something that you use often in Canada?
Like personally, I haven't used it much, but it's certainly a common expression here. You do hear it from time to time. Yeah, just like Simon was saying, just looking for the positive aspects in a more negative situation.
Yeah, I think this is a common one. Maybe a lot of people in our comments may also recognize it. Very.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty common one too in Ireland. It's an optimistic approach, which reminds me of another term of, are you a glass half full or a half empty type of person? Which is kind of a way of asking, are you an optimist or a pessimist in your approach to life? And it's something I'm not too sure. Nathan, is that a common term here? Glass half full, half empty?
Yeah, that's also a common one. Like again, I think a lot of these idioms I don't necessarily say personally, but it definitely comes up in pop culture, in just conversations, TV news, whatever. It is a fairly common one for sure.
Okay, next one. I know this. I'm hoping it make hay while the sun shines. I could be wrong. Oh, it's not.
Oh,
Finding a needle in a haystack. So that's pretty straightforward, but Simon, do you want to let everybody know what it means?
yeah. So to find a tiny thing in a large pile of things that look almost the same. So finding a needle in a haystack is when you're looking for that one thing, but your search area is so massive, it's almost impossible. In fact, when we say it's like finding a needle in a haystack, it kind of implies that it's impossible, so you shouldn't try. Like there's no point even trying to do that.
Unless you have a metal detector, and then
well,
save some time.
I mean, that's true. That's true. If you happen to have a metal detector, then that would be useful. But it's generally used when someone suggests something that is so complex that we immediately look for a second option. Like what's a different way of approaching this? Because if we say, oh, that would be like finding a needle in a haystack, that doesn't generally imply that that's a problem that can be solved in that way.
Mm-hmm.
For us, anyway. The English are kind of pessimistic anyway. I was thinking about this in the last slide. Like, we don't generally look for silver linings. We like to complain. I don't know if the Irish are the same, but we like to complain about everything. So
yeah, for sure.
That's why when I think about finding a needle in a haystack, it's just, well, there's no point trying. Let's go for a pint instead. Like, I don't know. Do you use it as any aspect of like to be like being able to solve the problem in Canadian English, Nathan?
Yeah, I think the implication is similar here. Like if you're looking for needle in a haystack, it's going to be a really, really tricky task. It's going to take a long time and be super complex. So it's not something you say when you're getting ready for a fun, easy task, for sure. I'm also kind of interested. Aswathi's first guess was make hay while the sun shines. I haven't really heard that too much before.
It's my mom's favorite idiom. She says it all the time when I was a kid, when I was growing up. I think it means that like do an activity when you're meant to do it, or when all the things work in favor of that activity. But if you know a different meaning for it.
No, absolutely. We use it the same way. To make hay while the sun shines is to, again, it's a farming reference, as so many of these are, that when the climate is good for this manual labor, because hay can only be collected when it's dry. So if like you have 3 days in the English calendar where you don't have rain. So when you have sunshine, you need to get out and collect all that hay together. So you got to make hay while the sun shines.
That makes sense.
So this is, I think, the last slide. So I really enjoyed myself. I hope Simon and Nathan and Barry, you guys had fun too. I'm really thankful that you joined us.
Yeah, thanks. I had a great time. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much. It's been great to be here.
Yeah, this was lots of fun.
Thank you. So that was our vocabulary and idioms episode. We mainly focused on the UK because we've actually opened a CELPIP test center in the United Kingdom where you can go take your CELPIP test if you're in that area. We've also opened in Australia, and we very recently opened in Nigeria. So we just wanted to celebrate these new locations. But thank you so much for joining us and watching this episode. If you liked it, as I see that a lot of people did, please let us know what else you'd like to see, or if you'd like to see more of this. We'd be really happy to create content for you. I have not forgotten the trivia question. Where in Canada was peanut butter invented? It was in Montreal, in Quebec. So I didn't know that peanut butter was invented in Canada before I read this trivia, so it's a good thing to know. Our next episode will be 2 weeks from now. If you follow us on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, we'll share the exact time. It's always Tuesdays at 9:30 a.m. But you'll know that next episode, Brandy will be joining us with another CELPIP lesson. So until then, thank you so much and have a nice day. Bye.